important conversations, very passionate, very trustworthy, and looking at issues that affect you, especially when you have the mandate, or rather, shall we say, when you consider that you have the authority as a citizen to take certain actions yourself. So yes, we have talked and taken a few matters, put them on the front burner and got into the meat of it. But when it comes down to it, really and truly, as it has to do with monies that are being generated, as it has to do with monies that are being spent, monies that are collected from you, whether you know it or not, whether you like it or not, we have come to Citizens Mandate to track today. And I have a guest who is going to be joining me to have this conversation. Remember, we're streaming live on Facebook and YouTube, so join us at Nigeria Info Abuja on Facebook and YouTube. Mr. Joshua Osiyemi is my guest on the show today. Joshua Osiyemi is the head of Tracka, which is budgets, public finance, and service delivery monetary platform in Nigeria. He leads the organization's efforts to track the implementation of federal and state government projects, exposing issues related to fraudulent project delivery, abandoned works, and unexecuted projects despite budgetary allocations. So help me make welcome Mr. Osiyemi to the show. Good to have you here, sir. Mr. Joshua? Okay, let's make sure that it is not a network glitch. Mr. Joshua, can you hear me?
Absolutely. I'm so sorry. So I had my Google Meet open in about two places. So
okay. Welcome, sir. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, then. So we have a very interesting conversation on the table today. I remember seeing it on both Tracka's handle as well as Budget's handle, and it was giving us sort of like a picture of what has been happening at the local government areas of a country, and it has to do with internally generated revenue, but a very, very troubling picture that was painted from that report that we saw, where it said that according to the NBS now, yes, I know that your organization does a lot of work in tracking, but this is also verified data from the NBS showing that only 21 states captured internally generated revenue from their local governments. And just by reading that headline, you're thinking this is a structural crisis. But if you could just please help us break down what that report is saying. Is it that only 21 states generated internal revenue, or is it that only 21 states were able to put up the report showing how much internally generated revenue that they made at the local government level? Help us make sense of that report, sir.
So absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, actually. So what the report is simply saying is that the 21 states that you're even talking about here are the ones that are able to get their books together, and then it's not even going to be comprehensive, because if you look at it very well, you will discover that you're not even getting all the details. But then these are the states that you can even say that, oh, this is what we're able to get from this particular state in terms of the internally generated revenue for the state in the year in focus. Yeah.
So basically what it is that local governments are generating revenue, but not all of them have a handle on how much they're generating, or they just don't have the mechanisms to capture that figure.
Yeah, so of course they will all generate, because it's expected. But then now to be able to report it, as it were, it's going to be another challenge for them. And another thing is how the state is also able to capture what what the local government is actually doing. So if you bring all of this together, that's exactly what this report is talking about.
Okay, so let's start with the crux of the matter. Internally generated revenue at the local government level. a lot of people, when you hear IGR, conversations around IGR, they're thinking, oh, it's basically the state. Is there like a clear delineation of what the state is generating, or would the states report their IGR based on what they've generated at local government and at other levels? And then also, is there a separation in terms of using of those revenue generated between the local government and the states?
Right. So what you have is meant to be independent, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have the local government handling its own administration, and of course the state government also handling its own administration. And when it comes to IGR, being internally revenue generated revenue, you are talking about the revenues that the what's it called now, the LG is
Yes.
itself is taking the initiative to sit together and then think of how can we now accrue more money to our purse, to be able to run this government and to be able to do a lot more for the people of the local government itself. But then quite a number of items that should naturally belong to the local government arm of tier of government, as it were. So you have tenement rate, you have kiosk, you have markets, taxes and levies, auto park levies as well, and quite a number of those things. When you bring all of that together, you have quite a number of them: marriage certificate,
Okay.
death certificate, you know, even naming of streets, all of those things brought together in places where they have conveniences, public conveniences. It's also the initiative of the local government to put those things there so that people can use them, pay money, and then they can use it to maintain the place, and whatever it is that they can generate from there, that can also accrue to them. And radio and the television licenses and all of
Yes.
those, cemetery and all of those. So those are monies that should naturally go to the local government as their own IGR.
Mm.
But then when you sit with this IGR and you look at what exactly the states are really doing, I mean the LGAs are really doing, then you want to ask yourself a very big question on are we actually thinking, do we have the right pegs in the right holes,
Mm.
to actually administer LGAs in Nigeria? Because for instance, let me give you this for instance.
Okay.
In Etiosa local government, Etiosa local government, the Lagos state, and about I think a month ago or thereabouts, we had a program together. And we're meant to discuss around how to demand accountability,
Yeah.
in that particular local government. So it brought about all stakeholders, including even government officials and all of that. And not being our own work, what we were meant to do is to interpret whatever data they have,
Mm-hmm.
in a way that can be easily understandable for people. So I looked into their 2020, is that 2026 or 2025 budget now? I looked at that budget, and what I found is quite shocking. 2026 budget,
Okay.
so there's an overtly reliance on the federal government to even help with their own budgets. There's this budget that comes from there's this allocation, this FAC
Yes. FAC
allocation
allocations. Yes.
comes from the federal every month. So you get to understand that almost 40% of the entire budget is totally reliant on that. And then you have the VAT. And then when you go to the IGR is just a very minimal part of what the LG is even trying to accrue to itself
Hmm.
in that budget. And that already communicates a lot of things to you. How innovative are the government officials, or at the local government level, how innovative are they to actually bring about having enough, to be able to handle their own issues themselves. Maybe this discussion we get to. I don't know if I'm too fast on this discussion, but so those are some of the things you have here.
I mean, we can absolutely go there because there is this general sense of and I think a lot of Nigerians view them from this lens, whether at the local government or whether at the state. There's a general sense of how much money can they even make, right? How much money are they currently making, and all of that. So there's a general sense of they're not even making money, Seth. And I think if we don't probe that properly, and which is why data like what the NBS put out is very important. Now it is even important that we make it very clear that we're talking about the NBS and this 21 states that according to the NBS bombshell ledger, they looked at the IGR for these states and found out that only 21 states managed to record a single kobo from their local governments. It's important that we're able to define, is it that these monies that they recorded is what they actually produced, is what they actually generated, or is it that this is just a case of let us even try? It's like ticking off a box, per se. It could also be possible that there are monies that they are generating at that level that they are not accounting for, which is also very, very key, I think. And then also, even more troubling is the fact that this data that the NBS put out is for 2024, meaning that they were working on it, and they only just put it out recently because the finalized IGR report was just recently fully compiled and published by the NBS in late 2025. So you're also having a problem in terms of the reporting mechanisms, which will allow for, I think, lots of gaps to rear their ugly heads. Whether it is as a result of the mechanisms that the local governments have to actually capture this, the intention to actually go ahead and capture it fully and completely, and then, at the end of the day, you can even have an MBS verify such reports as well. We are looking at 21 states, but even when you look at what they generated, it is a significant amount in itself. So there is absolutely the potential. Whether the local government chairman and all the handlers who are responsible for this are actually doing the work to generate that, tap into the potential, generate the required figures, and then report what it is that they are generating is the question that we now have to answer. So much so that even an NBS cannot put together a report as of 2024. We are getting it late 2025. So when are we going to start analyzing the one for 2025 and the one for 2026? So there's so many gaps.
You 2026 you meant?
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, what did I say?
So you actually said we're getting the report in 2025.
Okay. So the research that I did said that MBS published it in late 2025. So you're saying that it's actually this 2026 that came out?
Yes.
Okay, so 2 years after the fact. So there's so many gaps, really and truly. If we were to attempt to begin to address this, but we need to go on a break. When we come back, please, I would like to speak to why this report is important and what it should leave in the minds of citizens, and if there's any action that can be taken, what action can they take? Because the truth is that if you're in FCT right now, which is where we are, somebody has approached you either at your business place or even at your gate to demand one levy or the other, right? And so whether they're accounting for it fully or accounting for it at all, monies are being generated at the level of the local government. And also, if you have any issue within your local government area, if you know what it is that is being generated, perhaps you've also taken a look at what the budgets for your local government for that year is, you can now sit down and say, okay, this is where I can come in and either track to ensure that they're using the monies that they're collecting from us to serve us within the community, or you can even say, you can track to the point that, hello, sir, why have you not put up a record of your IGR that was generated? So those are the areas I would like for us to address. But if we just come back from this commercial, we'll speak to that. Thank you so much.
Audio
giving you the information. It is to give you the information, and then you then decide whether you can act on it or not. And also, as we like to do, give you the tools to be able to act on some of these things as well. All right. As we've done in previous episodes, we've asked you to take a look at what's happening all the way from ward level to, for example, here in the FCT, your area council level. And these things are important because monies are flowing in and out, whether you like it or not. But today we are looking at what they are generating. And because the various local government areas have not taken this up as a priority thing to do, and I'm talking about reporting now, even the NBS is limited in when they can get the data on what is going on. And so we also need to, that's an area we need to, I think, focus our searchlight on to say the states have been mandated to a certain extent to account for, their monies, have a look at your budget, see how you're spending and all of that. But also the local governments, it's so important because local governments were granted financial autonomy in 2024. But if they cannot account for what is being generated, the question then becomes, will it be any more transparent now that they have autonomy? You are having instances where some states are not even bothering to report at all. I'll just give you a quick look at what this 2024 report is saying, and then we'll get our guest to help us in on how does the citizen come in this area. 21 of Nigeria's 36 states reported any local government IGR. According to the NBS, no figures were captured for the remaining 15. These 21 states accounted for 39.4 billion naira in total internally generated revenue at the local government levels, with Bauchi topping the list at 7.50 billion, Imo at the bottom with 72.15 million. Lagos, which led the year before with 10.49 billion in IGR generated at the local government areas, did not appear on the 2024 list at all. And so if this level of how should I put nonchalance, I think if it continues to play out at the part of the local government levels, then any other conversation we're having around local government autonomy will not really hold weight. We need to be checking even at this level so that by the time they fix all the structural challenges around local government autonomy and they're generating money and also getting directly from the federal allocation account, we should see a level of seriousness in accounting for those funds. All right, so let's get to Mr. Joshua at this point. I asked, why is it important that Nigerians have this information around the IGR at local governments, and how can the citizens come in to track and monitor?
All right, so thank you so much for that. So it is very important for Nigerians to even pay attention to what happens at the local government more than any other tier of government, and that's the truth. Remember that LGAs, that's the local government areas, happens to be the closest to the people, so, and the major basic services that will affect the lives of the people directly, is the function of the LGAs. It is just quite unfortunate that it is in Nigeria that you discover that we have local government elections and people are not even bothering to be a part of it. Nobody, so a lot of people don't even know who their local government chairman is. And before you even get to your local government, you have a ward councillor, who is meant to take the matters of your ward to the council, and then discuss it at the local government level so that whatever intervention needs to be brought to your place can be discussed. But then when people don't even know all these people, and the only set of people we focus on are the governors, and are the presidents. So it brings a lot of question around, do we even know what you're doing at all? But then you cannot also blame the people in totality because of the kind of federalism we're practicing in Nigeria, where almost all the powers now resides at the center. You hardly find it so difficult. You find it so difficult to believe that a local government area or a local government chairman can successfully execute a project on its own without the intervention of the state or even the federal. So it has become that bad in the country. Your primary health center is the function of your local government chairman. This survival of your primary schools, and even up till I think basic 3 or what's it called, JSS 3 or thereabout, is the function of your of your LGA. Your rural roads is a function of your LGA. Trunk C roads, they are a function of LGA. Your what's it called now? Sanitation and drainage clearing. These are function of the LGA. But then the truth of the matter is, do you even believe that the LGAs are cut out for this? Can they actually carry out these functions?
What would make them unable? What will make them unable to carry it out? What will make them unable to carry it out independently? Why would they need? Why? What is the challenge with? You talked about the federalism, as it's being practiced. What is it about the current structure that makes it difficult for local governments to be able to carry out some of these things without intervention from the state and the federal?
So let's talk about their revenue. There's a percentage of the revenue that does not stay with them. There's a percentage of it that even goes to the state. And out of that, a percentage of that also goes to the federal. So you have that. Of course, you also know that we have a consolidated kind of revenue structure in the country where all resources is now being redistributed at the center, right? And then that's when you talk about, what's it called now? The FAC, the Federal Account Allocation Committee,
yes.
Right? So all of these things definitely will hinder the local government from being able to. But then the truth of the matter is that, just like I've mentioned earlier, quite a number of them are not so innovative as well. I was giving you an example of what we had in Etiosa local government.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, Etiosa local government happens to be the richest local government in Nigeria, right?
In Nigeria?
Yes, in the whole of Nigeria, yes, Etiosa. And what you have in their book can be so frustrating. What I got there for this 2026 budget is that their IGR, projected IGR for this year, is about 638 million. And then I was wondering, how would you be thinking this way? That all that you are planning, and no wonder what you have in Bauchi that happens to be leading in that ranking, had about 7.5 billion as the IGR for 20 local government areas in 12 months of the year. 7.5 billion, and that happens to be the state that's even leading in the whole stuff. Of course, Lagos was not even anywhere to be found because the books were not opened, right? But the truth of the matter is, if you can think deeply, from your diaspora funding alone, you can get more than that. You can get more than 5 billion. And the problem with the LGAs is that they are also not ready to open their books. See, where people will come in to assist you is when people are seeing that you are transparent enough and you're accountable to them.
Yeah.
So if you need anything from them, it's not going to be difficult for people to say, oh, since we can see what you are using this money for, we can always support this administration, right? The reason why people should get involved in all of this, just like I mentioned, this is also you. All the basic needs you will complain about in this country, it's actually like the basic. When you say basic, those are, I don't know what other word to use for basic, but then those are the elementary needs that you have. These are the responsibility of the local government authorities, right? So you have to be involved in this entire process, right? Ask questions from them, get to know them. That's the first. That's the first place to start with.
Okay.
So you have to even know who your councillor is, who your chairman is. Get needs from your community. Meet with your community development associations, meet with them, discuss issues, present it at the local government. And the good part of this is that every local government in Nigeria has the body that also gets reports from community development councils, right? Security, this insecurity issue that we're talking about.
Yeah.
If we have a functional LGA system, I am telling you, we will deal with the issue of security in no time, because it is going to be domesticated in a way that everybody knows everybody, and the security architecture is local, so that nobody infiltrates your community without everybody getting to know that no, something strange is happening here, and that we need to tackle it headlong.
How
right?
does the local
So
government authority feature in the insecurity conversation specifically? Do they have budgets that are assigned to them, to tackle it, or is it in them setting up some kind of a structure that would allow for this communal policing type of thing to happen? How do they feature exactly in this conversation?
so it's just about conceptualization,
Okay.
right? So just like you will always hear that people will say politics is local, right? Every other thing is local. It's not just politics,
Hmm.
right? Even insecurity is local, because you cannot have insecurity in an area where people don't domicile. So anybody who is going to perpetrate any form of act in terms of insecurity must have resided nothing less than 2 weeks in that area. So they will have patrolled the area, studied, and all of that, And then if you have your local security architecture in place, your surveillance camera, what stops the local government from having very sophisticated equipment like surveillance camera all around the entire local government area? Nothing stops us from doing that. I was listening to a video where a guy from Canada was saying that if anything of insecurity matter happens in Canada, and everybody gets an alert immediately. So what's stopping Nigeria from also having all this kind of security architecture?
At the local
So
government level.
so even at the local government level, yes, we can have surveillance system at the local government level if we know what we are doing. Yes, and that way we are able to solve this insecurity issue that everybody is talking about. Nothing stops us from. We have local vigilantes, that are all around. We have local hunters, who are local people that are by one way or the other part of the security architecture.
Hmm.
But these are people, because these are people that are always in the bush. These are people that, in their own way, in their own state, just sit on their own and monitor how everything is going in the community.
Okay.
So you have community monitors like that.
Hmm.
And that's not to even say that there is no commitment to security funding, even for LGAs from the state, because you know that the state gets security votes, right? And from that security vote, nothing stops. I won't believe that even the LGAs don't get anything that's called security votes. It will be minimal, but then something definitely must go to the pulse as well.
Mm. So
Yeah.
we're looking at for funding for local governments. First of all, on their own, they are generating. They're
Yep.
probably not generating enough because there's not a lot of
Absolutely. They're not generating enough
thought
as far as
that
I'm
goes
concerned.
into it, right? So, but they are generating, and then apart from that, yes, there is local government autonomy. They're trying to work on the nitty gritty of it to ensure that monies are actually flowing in. But I've read in one or two places that monies are actually flowing in directly into the local government. But then you've mentioned that there is a key financial constraint where even when they generate monies or when they get some of these monies, some of it still goes back to the state and the federal government. So if we were really and truly going to get development or solve some of the problems at the basic level at these local governments, how do we fix this financial constraint issue now that local governments are having? Because it sounds to me like even if they put a lot of thought into it and they started generating and they started reporting, there might still be another problem of who is collecting the monies that they're generating, so who is collecting the monies, where is the money actually going into, whether it is from federal or the ones they're generating, are they allowed to use these monies to actually develop their local government areas? Because if we're not addressing that issue, then any other fight that we're fighting for is just going to go down into this huge wormhole. And you say you want to track it. Oh, citizens, follow up track. How do we do any of these things if there will still be that constraint? So what conversation are we supposed to be having to fix that? So that when we say citizens, go to your local government area and ask and demand some of these things, we know that they would actually get results from them.
So practically, if you look at a typical local government budget, it's more or less like an administrative document. Just very little part of it speaks to the developmental agenda they have for the citizenry. The bulk of what they have in their document is around how they pay the local government staff and then how do they pay the health workers and the
The
primary
teachers.
teachers,
Mm.
yeah, that they have. Um, maybe part of what you will see, will be around women affairs, because I see that as quite exhilarating in a way, from some of the local government budget that I've seen. This is an electioneering period, and what it means is that you need to commit quite a number of resources to that place as well, so that they can help with election campaigns and all of that. But that's by the way. Now, what the LGAs can do, sincerely, one, they need to block leakages, right? It has gotten to a stage where in Nigeria, we need to start digitalizing our revenue collection mechanism. It's very important. I deliberately, because of the kind of work I do, I try as much as possible to access healthcare from government-owned enterprises. Yesterday, I was still at a health center yesterday, right? And I still discovered that they were still collecting cash. You know, they were doing the normal point on sales collection, and then they were maybe transfers. But then at some point, I discovered that cash changes were still going on, and this is wrong. There's time and age, because if you give that lacuna, I'm also saying that maybe all the monies may not be remitted eventually. You never can tell, So we need to digitize our revenue collection mechanism. You need to have taxpayers database. It's very important. You will be so surprised to know that quite a number of the LGAs don't even have this database. They don't even know how many of their, what's it called now, of their community members within the tax-paying age. And that's one thing about Nigeria as a whole. We don't even have data. And the data that we have, we don't even use them. Meanwhile, this data is very important, because data is what you use for resource allocation, resource mobilization, right? You need to do internal control. And internal control, what I mean by this internal control is very simple. You cannot expect the same set of people that do collection to still be the same set of people that will do reconciliation at the end of the day. No, that will still be the ones to do auditing. No. So all of these things has to be well split out, so that A knows that this is what I'm doing. Mine is just to collect. Mine is to audit. Mine is to reconcile. So when you have all of this system in place, everybody wants to put themselves in check, right? And nobody's after anybody. You just want to be sure that our books are balanced, right? We need to do monitoring and evaluation. Of course, you also need to make your books open to the public. It's very important as well. Then you need to incentivize the people that are paying the taxes. It's important. So people that are doing well, incentivize them, and then sanction those who are not doing well. It's important that you have to do that. But then before you can sanction, before you can say, oh, we want to do this, there must be things to show for your administrative efforts.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Because if people are paying taxes, then they also want to see how are these taxes now affecting our own lives. Because if you say, oh, GDP is improving, the inflation is decreasing, and something, nobody's bothered about those economic jargons. What an average Nigerian wants to see is how much are they selling a bowl of rice? How much does it cost now to get a bowl of gari? How much does it cost now to get fuel? How much does it cost now for my daily life? Am I having it well, or is it still uncomfortable for me? So these are the issues, and these are some of the things I feel the government can do, to get better.
Okay. All right. Well, we still placed it at the foot of the government, which means that for the average Nigerian, where does that leave them? For the citizen, how do you? I think we can also apply pressure from the level of the communities to say, I don't know how we're going to do this, because there's this thing about elected officials. Once they get into office, you say, don't worry, the next elections. I don't know if it's something that can start happening at this level where you already have elected officials. We had our elections.
This is what I tell people.
Yes.
This is what I tell people.
Yes.
Right. If any politician comes to you and say, we're going to promise you this, or this is what people are lacking and all of that. When we go for our town meetings, what I tell my committee people, I don't have any committee people anyways. So, but then what I tell the people in the communities is that, wait, if anybody comes to you during this electioneering period to promise you anything, have your needs documented somewhere and get them to sign, right? That this is what we need in this community. If you are saying it with your mouth now, that after you are sworn in or you have won the election and sworn in, you are going to do them for us, just sign. It's not difficult. And that way, that document is binding you. So there's nothing you want to do about it. So you can come back and tell them, because of unavailability of funds, we may not be able to do this. That is explainable. But now, but the truth of the matter is that you cannot just escape the promises.
Well, again,
you have a lot of manifestos, you have a lot of promises that government officials make, and at the end of the day, none of them is playing out from that.
Well, Mr. Osiyemi, as we wrap up, you can talk about promises for going into the electioneering season for governors and presidents and what have you, senators. In Abuja here, we just concluded our area council elections this year. And so
I think that was in February.
Yes, in February. And when you look at the level of participation, you would see that there was hardly anything about some kind of a social contract between the people and the elected officials within the local government. So again, perhaps because our time is done, we will not be able to get into more about how we can engage at this level. They're already in office and all of that, but perhaps at another time we can get into that. But Abuja, if you've been listening and you've been wondering why we're talking about this at all, if you run a shop, a pharmacy, any business at all in Abuja, for those of you who are commuters, drivers on the road, or for some of you, as we've seen in recent times, you're just sitting down in your house and then you are having different local government task forces coming to demand one amount from you or the other. You pay for waste, you pay for signposts, you pay for operational license. Just know that in 2024, Abuja did not record a single kobo for IGR generated, and we do know that they've generated revenue. So this is why this is important.
Have you even seen the Abuja budget before? Have you even seen the FCT budget?
Well, I have. In the course of one research or the other, at least I've known, I've been able to tell what one area council or the other area council has budgeted for the year 2026.
Maybe I'll get from you after the show.
Oh yeah, please. I will provide it. But thank you so much for coming on. We had a few messages. I'll have to read the messages after the news. But thank you so much, Mr. Osiyemi. Hopefully we'll have you on at another time.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Grateful.
All right, sir.
Akan titi ke magana a yau za mu ga kyakkyawar sani da mutane suka yi wa magi cikin flavor. Na gaba karanto harufan celery.
SEALARRIE celery.
Haba mutumina, ka ce kawai ka sauya harufan zuwa salary.